Hi, my name's Joe Benevento, and earlier this year, my novel, My Perfect Wife, Her Perfect Son, was published. A novel that explores the Holy Family through the eyes of St. Joseph before the halo. This Advent, Catholic Charities invited me to share weekly Advent reflections with you, and I'm pleased to present them here. Part 2, The Visitation. The first chapter of the Gospel of Luke tells us that Mary's cousin Elizabeth was well into her pregnancy before Mary learned of it through a visit from the angel Gabriel. We're told that soon after, Mary leaves to visit with Elizabeth and stays with her for 3 months, up through the birth of John the Baptist. Already pregnant herself, Mary took on that journey, stayed to help Elizabeth, and then came back to Nazareth. Most Christians don't really think much about the trip. They aren't asked to do so. Instead, they are asked to focus on Elizabeth's child leaping in her womb on Mary's approach, Elizabeth's declaring of Mary to be blessed among women, and Mary's famous song about her soul magnifying the Lord. But though that sublime give and take is beautiful, it's also worth thinking about the logistics of that encounter so as to fully appreciate Mary's heroism. Elizabeth didn't live in the next town over from Nazareth, but rather somewhere in the hills of Judea. Some scholars have identified the likely town as Ein Karem, which would have been 70 or so miles away, a journey of several days' endurance. Did Mary, already pregnant and just married to Joseph, really make that trip by herself? Even if she had been pregnant, what woman of that time period would make a trek of several days over some very rough and uncertain terrain alone? I like to think that Joseph accompanied her, at least to make sure she arrived safely. Wouldn't the average husband be expected to do so? He probably could not have afforded to stay 3 months, though. He was a craftsman with a business to run, so he probably returned to Nazareth and then made the round trip again to escort Mary after her long visit. Ein Karem is less than 5 miles from Jerusalem, where Elizabeth's husband Zechariah was one of the priests at the main temple. Zechariah had gotten his own visit from Gabriel, but because he doubted the possibility of Elizabeth being able to bear a child and asked for a sign, Gabriel had struck him dumb until all that was predicted would come true. Not many people realized then that the visitation was no easy trek, but a real commitment by a pregnant Mary to her cousin Elizabeth in her time of need. Soon after Mary's return to Nazareth, the Roman census takers will insist that Mary and Joseph head for Bethlehem, Joseph's hometown, which would entail their retracing much of the trip they had just made, though at a longer overall distance. I've been a Catholic for close to 70 years now, and I don't remember any priest or other religious discussing with the congregation the amazing difficulties of these journeys that Mary and Joseph took on willingly to follow God's plan. One other takeaway from the events of the visitation is the somewhat amazing faith of the women involved. Remember that Joseph at first did not believe Mary could be pregnant and yet still a virgin. And Zechariah had given up on Elizabeth as barren many years before. Even an archangel could not convince him she could bear a child. Conversely, Elizabeth and Mary never doubt. So filled with the gifts of the Holy Spirit are they that they accept the promised miracles as easily within the province of the Most High. Then they stand as role models to their husbands, who then can come round and also fully believe.
We're so pleased you've joined us for weekly reflections this Advent from author Joseph Benevento, who released his novel, My Perfect Wife, Her Perfect Son, earlier this year. You can support the work of Catholic Charities by purchasing the novel at a local bookstore or online at a seller like Amazon.com. To learn more about the work of Catholic Charities of Central and Northern Missouri, visit us online at cccnmo.diogeffcity.org or follow us on social media at cccnmo. Cover artwork for our Advent Reflection Series podcast episodes includes the sculpture A Quiet Moment by artist Timothy P. Schmaltz. Background music is licensed through Adobe Stock. Thank you for listening and have a blessed Advent.